So hi everyone and welcome to Architecture in the Den. With me, your host Lisa Rains from Pride Road, the architectural practice franchise. And today I'm delighted that Ewan Miller has joined me. So Ewan, I've known you for quite a while, maybe 10
No,
years.
not at all. We're spring chickens.
Yes.
Years.
So Ewan runs a I was going to say a super practice.
Fair enough, I'll take that. It's just a normal practice.
Just a normal practice, a super practice in Altrincham, up in sort of in the outskirts of Manchester. And we were just talking a couple of minutes ago about what we were going to talk about, and we've got quite a few kind of common ground. There is quite a bit of common ground between us. We kind of both served on the RIBA. We're both in the practice, work in similar sectors. And I'm going to stop there because I usually don't talk that much on a podcast. So I'm going to introduce Ewan and just ask you to introduce yourself a bit further.
Well, good afternoon, Lisa. Lovely to see you again. And thank you for having me on, and good afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name is Ewan Miller. I am Managing Director of Calderfield Architects based in South Manchester, as Lisa rightly points out. We have about 30 staff. We've got offices in Esher, in Surrey, a small office in Sheffield, Liverpool and Manchester, as well as Altrincham, but the majority of the staff are based in Altrincham, where our studio is. And we specialise, if that is a word, on the residential sector. I suppose maybe half of our work is what we class as super homes, which really is just a fancy word for expensive houses, usually replacement dwellings, which isn't really falling into the refurb side of the market. But we do an extensive bit of refurbishment work as well, and other commercial work, whether that be care, assisted living, retirement living, and looking at what we class as complex residential. So not your big, we do some big master plans, but peculiar sites that require creative solutions, I think, is where we like to pitch ourselves. But we are probably best known, as I call it, our Chesney Hawkes School of Architecture, our big one hit for the typical the Hale Barns, Wilmslow, Audley Edge, Knutsford type of villa that is quite prevalent in those areas.
Yeah, so I think that's why I kind of said super practice, because you do super homes.
Indeed.
Yeah. It's quite interesting, the pair of us, because I'm in the residential market as well, but concentrating more on refurb. So I'm at the bottom of the market and you're at the top of the market. And it's just
bottom and top, just different ends of the market, aren't they? I think that they both have their challenges, and I think the luxury, excuse the word, the luxury we do have at the higher end, I suppose, is that money is not so much of an issue for some of those clients. So therefore, we can afford to charge what I would class as not a high fee, an appropriate fee for the project. And I think that's something that I've been banging on for many a year, about architects valuing what they do and making sure that they charge the correct fee, so we can pay people the correct wage, so that we won't be, as was highlighted by the recent, it was Insider or Northwest, it was Insider did a survey, and architects were the bottom of the pile in terms of income in the property sector in the Northwest, and that's quite depressing, really. We shouldn't be. But yeah, and the residential sector is a ever evolving one, and the amount of architects I know that think they can design fantastic houses and can't. It's quite a difficult conundrum to solve, and the clients can be very demanding, which is challenging and fun at the same time. But yeah,
that's one of the reasons why. Yeah, we kind of look at the other end of the market. We've got the same values in terms of sort of making clients understand our value and making sure that we are appropriately paid, and I think that's definitely common ground between the pair of us. But also, I think it's about sort of trimming your service so it's appropriate to your clients.
Yes, it's managing their expectations, isn't it? I think And yeah, I don't know, it's difficult. It's like anything, isn't it? You always remember the ones that were hard and difficult and didn't pay their fees. Invariably, there are many more of them that were far easier, enjoyable to work with, and did pay their fees. And the super home, or the luxury end of the market, the residential market, has always been it's always surprised me how consistent it is, because even in the depths of recession, there's always someone with money who wants to build a house, or whether that be the typical footballer, or in recession it tends to be liquidators and people like that who have the money. So it's a good sector. We're very proud of it. And constantly evolving, understanding how people want to live in their houses these days, how they want to engage with their houses, the different types of technology and spaces that they want to occupy are changing constantly, and it's making sure that we understand how that works and how these houses.
So what's your largest, I'm going to be like, what's the largest budget that you've worked with?
Gosh, that's a good question. Should have done some homework before I came, shouldn't I?
Largest budget, fanciest.
Largest, fanciest, most expensive.
Yeah.
We did a house which sadly went to tender, but then the couple got divorced for about 17,000 square feet. I think from memory we were looking at somewhere around about 12 million, but I could be wrong. I can't remember exactly what it was, but again, that was a very specific house for them. It was based down south, and why they needed that much space, Lord only knows. But he collected Banksy art, and he was relatively young. He was in his, I think it was late 30s, early 40s from memory, and also DJ'd. So he had a DJ booth in one of the schemes. So yeah, but we do. It varies.
Sounds
really.
Like a famous person that. Was it a famous person?
It wasn't. I couldn't tell you anyway. He wasn't famous at all. He was probably famous in his sector, but not in the public eye at all.
Right. Okay. Not in the public eye.
And some of them, he was very open about it. I'm sure he wouldn't care if I was to talk about him personally, but I wouldn't anyway. But some of them are obviously very private individuals, so they require us to remain quite quiet on some of the houses we've done. We can't talk about, which is quite frustrating at times, but goes with the territory really.
I think a lot of my clients would certainly be sort of interested in some of the stories that you've got on clients and who your clients would be. Yeah. We're all fascinated. Is that through the keyhole fascination, isn't
I think that's what's so fascinating about domestic architecture, is that everyone lives in a house or a flat. We all have lived in a house. We've all had experience of it. Not everyone has. We used to do fire stations, for instance. Don't ask me why. That's long lost in the midst of time. But not many people are interested in fire stations, apart from the fact, do they still use a pole? Whereas, and they don't, by the way. But with housing, everyone's fascinated by housing, and it might just be even your own house, but they're all fascinated by it, and they want to hear the stories about the 10-pin bowling alley that we put in someone's house, or someone asked for a present wrapping room, so they could just have a room that was dedicated to that. I don't know how many presents they wrapped, but I always assumed they'd have staff to do that. But there we are. And catering kitchens. Staff quarters. There are a vast array of things that get thrown into these properties. Golf simulator rooms, so you can test your golf swing. And we have one client who's just bought a car that you can't put on the road, and I think he's bought it for about £2 million. And he sent us the size of it so we can design a turntable for his garage for it to go in. Now, my initial thought when I heard all this was, how ridiculous. But in essence, for someone with that level of income and that level of worth, this isn't a car, this is, to him, a work of art, and he wants to show it off. So it's no different to having a fine sculpture on a revolving platform. And I think in places like the sort of semi-basement or underground, or not even underground, some of the garage spaces we're doing now, they're absolutely astonishing. You know, they can be converted into, you know, party areas and things like that. They're not the rather nasty fluorescent lit bright spaces that you would expect. They are quite well designed and considered spaces that really do show off some of these people's, you know, I suppose the things they like to collect in some instances. So there's a vast array of stuff that I could bore you to death with.
I'm sure you told me once about a fancy dressing room.
Oh, we've had loads of them, but we're here, the dressing room with the mirror, because that was the one you're thinking of. Where they had the mirror that you could stand in front of, turn around, wave your hand over a sensor, and the mirror played back you in a full length mirror, looking, you know, you could see every part of the clothing, which is a great idea, but in reality, you just put a mirror behind you and it has the same effect. But no, they wanted this very expensive bit of kit. And I think that's part of it, is that you have to, I certainly occasionally have to bite my tongue and think, you know, thankfully,
I know before we came on air, we were talking about our parents actually, and we were talking about, because my dad's very poorly, and you know, my dad has worked bloody hard in his life, and to have some material wealth or purchases, and you know, there are things that he had as an, you know, he I'm probably going to turn off all of my 3 subscribers, but he always wanted a Bentley.
Yeah.
And you know, he's successfully sold his business twice, and at the last sale, which was about 6 years ago, he bought himself a Bentley. And
was he happy with it when he got it?
Very happy with it, and it was, you know, one of his life's dreams to do that. So well,
it's admirable if he can get to a position where that is, if it's one of his life dreams. It's no more different than saying I want to visit, I don't know, New York or whatever. You know, it's those things that people strive to do. And
also, I think when I was younger, I kind of begrudged him doing ostentatious things like that, but you know, I always thought it was a bit cringy. But actually, knowing how hard he really did work, you know, he absolutely sort of deserved to buy a Bentley. So if you know anyone who wants
no,
I think a plum coloured Bentley.
I mean, I think there are, you know, it's difficult to say. I mean, people always assume that we do footballers' houses because of the area that we work in, and we do a few, probably more now than we have in the past. But footballers tend to be transient animals. You know, there are few and far between that stay for a very long time in one area. So it's not something that we chase that much. But I have to say, all the footballers, and I don't follow football, so I don't really know who they are, but all the footballers that I've come across or had to deal with have been very sensible, down to earth, intelligent, you know, interesting people. One I did find was drawing his house using the side of his iPad as a ruler when I came in for the first meeting. And I said to him, well, you know, I assume you're a footballer because I've seen a couple of, you know, trophies in your hall. I said, have you seen me play football? And he said, no. I said, exactly. So that's why I'll do the architecture and you do the football. And he didn't draw one after that, so that's a shame. But so yes, we do get, you know, quite a lot of them. But I think if you are, it does, some things do you have to sort of bite your tongue a little bit, because you think, crikey, you know, there's people who, you know, you don't know you're born sometimes to do this stuff, but they've all in their own way worked hard, or, you know, strove to achieve something. Some of them have, you know, very successful businesses they built up from nowhere, and you've got to admire them.
Do you watch the sale value of the properties that you do? I know it's a really important part of our business model, that I don't believe in putting clients in negative equity. And for our clients, their home is their primary investment. So
Yeah.
I'm always mindful of kind of what they bought the house for, you know, what the current value is, what the ceiling price is, and to make sure that they, you know, they don't make any sort of crazy investments, or, you know, sort of do something that's not going to add value. Is that something that you consider at all?
Yeah, it is a consideration, but I think with especially if you're looking at around Hale Barnes and the sort of luxury end of South Manchester, if you build a house for a client, it's for that client. The next one that comes along, if it's terribly unsustainable, will invariably demolish that and use the plot and do it again themselves. There's very few that actually come along and will either live in the house as it is and not completely demolish it. And even if they don't, they'll spend a fortune doing something different to it. But yes, we are constantly aware of where the market is in that area. But then it constantly surprises us, the fact that the market just continues to go up and up, and you'll have certain individuals buying 2 plots and knocking them together, and you just think, who on earth is going to want that size plot? But that's what they want. They can afford it. They want to build their house on it. We're not going to say no, but it then becomes a very rarefied market. If you think about it, in that end of the sector, the amount of people that are available to buy those sort of value properties is not as much as the range that would say that would be this I suppose the standard range for domestic properties around Manchester, which I guess would be anything from sort of, I don't know, £250,000, which is still a lot of money, up to, let's say, the £600,000-700,000 mark. So therefore, if you have got a house that you bought for £400,000 and you're going to spend £200,000 on it, then you've got to be pretty sure that when you're spending that £200,000, if something goes wrong and you have to sell it, that it's still going to deliver you some equity. But there is also the discussion about lifetime homes, and how we have a lot of younger couples will come to us, and they view their life as it is now. They might say, oh yeah, we'll get a dog, and we might have children later. But they can't view their life when their elderly parents have moved in with them, or the fact that they've even got elderly, or dogs, even more dogs, without realizing it. So it's how what we bring to the table is the fact that if they want this, if they believe this house is going to be their house for life, and no one can plan very far ahead in terms of life events. But if they do, then it's making them understand that there may come a point where you'll want to have a lift to take you upstairs to your bedroom, or you may want to live downstairs in a certain area, and how these spaces can be adapted to suit how you want to live, and how your changing health will affect that. Or if you have to move, it's not too difficult to imagine a teenage flat becoming a granny annex and things like that. So these houses need to be able to adapt and move and change. They also, some of them we design with vast spaces where they can have up to, I don't know, 20, 30 people in for dinner formally. But then, of course, but then that happens once a year. So you've then got to think, how's that space going to be used for the rest of the time? So it's making sure those spaces are adaptable, so that you don't feel, if you're sitting down reading the paper on a Sunday morning, it's not too cavernous and inhumane. And likewise, when you've got 30 odd people racing around doing stuff, it still feels homely and welcoming. Or there are, as we frequently plan into these spaces, a sort of retreat, which is a smaller room that's far more comfortable and personal.
So how do you work out fees for a large project?
We tend to work it on a square foot basis. So we've looked at what it's cost us in the past. Yeah. And we know that to deliver the service, for instance, we'll charge £4.50 a square foot. So we probably, if you go back to old money, for those that we may remember RIBA fee scales, we're probably looking at about 12% for a reasonable size house, which is, when we're looking at the commercial developments where we're charging maybe 4%, and 6% is a very good fee in that situation, then this side of the market is
let's see where it's
fees, because
absolutely.
we know they take time. and we know they take a lot of effort to do. But we also have the added benefit of the fact that we've got a decent reputation in this sector.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
people come to us for the houses, and that's we can afford to say to them, look, yes, we can do it. You're going to have to wait 3 months, and it's going to cost you this.
So tell me about how you so you're MD of Calder Peel.
Yeah.
And your name is neither Calder nor Peel?
Nope. People left a long time ago.
Who was?
It was the two. Yeah, Richard Peel, who is a developer. He used to have a company. He left to set up a development company called Mere Park, which went on to start doing some big work in Liverpool, and we did a large tower with them in central Manchester behind Piccadilly many years ago. But then the crash happened. But he left, I think it was about a year before I joined, I think. But he was already formulating that, because Harry Calder and Richard Peel, who set it up in Didsbury originally, always wanted to get into development. So they ran the development. But then Harry, his passion was the architecture. Richard's passion was more focused towards the development side. So they decided to split. Now, I suppose at that point, they should have possibly considered renaming it, but they didn't. It remained Calder Peel. And we've had discussions, I think, maybe 3 or 4 times about changing it. And we have changed it because we've taken on other practices in the past. So we had Fallows Gowan, we took them over. So we had FGP on the end of our name for a while. We've had a few practices come in that we've had to call ourselves with someone else. But then it usually fades away and Calder Peel remains. And I got to a point now where I'm getting too old, really. I know Roger, for instance, his practice has been renamed. Someone's going to ask me what it is now, I can't remember. But the guys that are taking over are now part of that practice name, and that's great. But
are you talking Stevenson?
Yeah, Roger Stevenson, yeah.
Studio.
They've got such a good brand, though. It's difficult to imagine it changing. I don't know. But at some point, someone will change our name, and it might not be in my tenure. Maybe the next generation comes up that decides to change the name, and that's fine.
So how long have you been at? When did you start at Calder Peel?
No, I think it was 19 or 20 years ago now, Lisa. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Ancient. No,
Where did you study?
Originally in Aberdeen. I did my degree up in Aberdeen University, and then studied at North London for my master's. And then I worked in London for a number of years.
And what brought you up to Manchester?
I suppose I would say money, but it wasn't money, but it was mainly quality of life. Mm. We were living in just outside Watford at the tail end of our existence down there. I was commuting into London every day. I worked at RMJM, and on some days it was a 2.5-hour commute each way, which was just shocking. 2 small children. So we met friends who were living up in the northwest. Went up to see them one weekend and thought, what on earth are we doing down there? Yeah. So yeah, we moved and didn't really look back. So the kids then got settled, and I joined a practice in Manchester.
Well, what was that?
It was a practice called Comprehensive Design, who were based in Edinburgh. They specialised in shopping centres, which is not exactly an area you want to be in now. And I think the guys in Edinburgh, they picked someone to go and run the practice down in Manchester. It was a lovely lad. And then he was joined by a chap called Steve Unwin. So all the listeners may have heard of him. He was at BDP when they were doing the Olympic bid. Very talented man, but they just for some reason couldn't get it off the ground, or not whilst I was there. And I noticed Calder Peel were starting to build in Manchester, so I looked them up, and decided I'd sort of drop them a letter and went for an interview, and that was it, really. So yeah, I'm still here.
It's usually part of the podcast that I ask if there's anything that you want to promote.
Anything I want to promote? Oh my God. Obviously, I'm here to promote Pride Road.
Are there any questions that you've got?
You'd like to send my check later? No, I mean, I think really we do our own advertising. We found, for instance, that our Instagram, that has now become, I think, one of our biggest marketing tools in the last few years. And we've got a lot of investment into that. No, I mean, you know, I'll be speaking, obviously your listeners will be predominantly architects, so I can't promote my practice because they're on their own, or they'll be going to work with someone. No, I've got nothing to sell, Mrs. I'm just the ride and the enjoyment.
And are you involved in the RIBA at the moment?
Well, like yourself, served on National Council. I did 2 terms because I was a glutton for punishment, and just finished a last 2-3 months ago now, and stood down. I don't know if I'll go back up for election again. I'd be surprised. However, I'm still on the Northwest Council, and I'm still currently, although I've not my application hasn't been accepted to be on National Membership Committee, because I think I was doing some work on there. I'm striving to get to a position where chartered members and chartered practices get free CPD from the RIBA, and I've been working on that for 6 years. We're getting close, so I'm keen to try and keep on board there so that membership fee covers all your CPD, and I think it's even more critical now with the core competencies coming up that if the RIBA wants to strive to be different to ARB and be a benchmark of quality, then I think they need to be offering the members free CPD as part of the membership package. So that's one thing I'm pushing for. Continue to do.
Is there anything that our listeners can do to support that?
Just any time that we enter from the RIBA, just nag them about it, really, I think, you know, because I mean the great thing is now that COVID's been a huge leveler, but a very interesting outcome is obviously everyone now knows how to, as we are today, how to operate digitally. So the CPD program, which again we were pushing to get onto the digital platforms, there was a huge amount of resistance to that RIBA because of the expense of doing so, and they prefer to do the roadshows, so they'd send them out to Manchester in place, which is fine. But then if you're in Cumbria and you've got to go for a day-long CPD session in Manchester, it's a long old haul to do it. So thankfully, COVID's done more than I ever could to make sure that gets put online. So now I see no reason why we can't be offering it as a free service to members. And I think, you know, the content of the roadshow was always high quality, and there's some great speakers, and just getting them online and making sure that if you've got a membership that you can access that, I think could be marvellous. So hopefully, watch this space. But as you well know, the RIBA is a fantastic organisation. I think, despite the fact that everyone moans about it in some way, shape or form, including me. I think if it didn't exist, we'd probably set up a new RIBA to represent architects. But it is, you know, it's a large organisation. It is very difficult to turn around ideas because it just takes a long time to cut through the quagmire of not so much the red tape, just the various departments to understand who the decision makers are and how you can influence them. But if you're not involved in the RIBA, well, you're not really going to be able to influence them. So I think that was my theory, is rather in than out to some extent. I still sit on the MSA Council, although I have to say, bless them, poor old Rob's the president now. I'm not really doing much. So I think I get invited just because I'm an old face.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks very much for coming on. It's been
not at all. It's lovely to speak to you.
Lovely to talk to you as usual.
The dogs have behaved.
Yeah, they are. I've got 2 here. I've got one asleep on the sofa and one asleep on my knee.
Yeah, one asleep too as well, thank goodness. But 3 at home.
What, you've got 3?
3 at home, yes. We've got 2 sausage dogs at home. So
really?
Yeah, we've got the cockapoo, Basil, and Cooper and Harvey, the sausage dogs. So that can be. So, you know, I understand the complexities of 2. You try 3, that's entertaining. No, it's good. It's great fun, to be honest. So, 3, wow.
Oh dear. We're all gluttons for punishment.
Yeah, I think so.
On that note, I'm going to stop and say thank you very much for coming on the podcast. If you've enjoyed listening to the podcast, please follow us, like, subscribe and share. We're available on YouTube and Spotify and generally most podcast outlets. And if you're interested in finding out more about Pride Road, you can look for prideroadfranchise.co.uk, and if you want to come on as a speaker, a contributor, please get in touch. So Lisa Rains. Right, Ewan, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Probably wish we'd done too long, but there we are.
And have a great afternoon. And we're on a Monday, aren't we? So yes. Is it Monday?
It is Monday. It was Monday the last time I looked. I presume it's 2 days.
Okay, bye.
Bye.